When the Kalama people in the ancient town of Kesaputta surrounded the Buddha in a state of confusion, unsure of whom to believe among the many competing sects vying for influence, a profound lesson on self-reliance and faith was revealed. That town sat at a dusty crossroads where countless caravans and ascetics passed through every day. Under the sweltering heat of ancient India, every visitor brought with them a collection of their own doctrines. Each claimed to hold the sole truth while unhesitatingly disparaging and belittling the beliefs of those who came before them. Standing there, amidst the clamor of the market, the clear ringing of bronze bells, and the contradictory sermons, the townspeople felt their hearts were like abandoned houses, being buffeted by the wind, with no solid place to lean on. They were like thirsty travelers in a desert, seeing shimmering mirages everywhere, only to find scorching sand upon closer inspection. That confusion from thousands of years ago, under the cool shade of that ancient town, is, strangely enough, repeating itself perfectly in the daily life of the modern world. When we look at our phone screens late at night, scrolling through relentless news about scandals in monastic circles, or witnessing those wearing religious robes engaging in profit-seeking behavior, it is easy for a deep sense of disappointment to arise. A cold sensation pierces the heart upon realizing that places once considered the most serene and transcendent are also stained by mundane calculations. The blue light from the phone screen reflects onto tired faces, bringing with it doubts about kindness and truth in this world. This daily anxiety does not emerge out of nowhere. It stems from an inherent habit of the mind, the constant desire to find a solid external point to cling to, the wish for some powerful force to shoulder one's own anxieties, only to receive the collapse of the idols one built themselves. When those pillars of support tremble, the entire inner world collapses along with them, leaving behind a hollow, wind-swept void. Facing the storm of doubt from the people of Kesaputta, the Buddha did not use miraculous promises to entice them, nor did he criticize the other ascetics. He calmly offered 10 guidelines on faith, acting as clear boundaries for self-reflection, your thoughts. His teaching pointed out that one should not believe simply because something has been passed down by word of mouth from generation to generation. Nor believe because it is a long-standing tradition, nor because it is recorded in ancient books, and not even because the person speaking is a high-ranking master with great prestige or a dignified appearance. This teaching is like a cold blast of air hitting the lazy human habit of clinging. The mind often prefers what is readily available. It likes recipes for happiness handed over, so it can simply follow along without having to contemplate for itself. Asking questions and seeking answers always requires courage and effort, so people often choose the easier path of blind faith in someone else. People are easily dazzled by a compassionate appearance, a deep and charismatic voice, or a massive, magnificent temple glistening under the sun. They assume that these large, beautiful, and majestic things are a guarantee of inner purity. But life is full of surprises and harsh realities. When that flashy shell cracks, the fragile faith of the clinger shatters as well, leaving a cold emptiness and unending anger and resentment. It is like building a house on sand. A single gentle wave is enough to wash away all that is illusory. The advice given to the people of that ancient town back then was very simple and practical. Personal experience and practice are the core. If you find that applying something to your daily life helps you become less greedy, less angry, and less selfish, bringing relief to your family and earning the recognition of the wise, then and only then should you believe and follow it. This is not a far-fetched theory, but a very natural test, much like tasting an orange. You do not need to hear others praise how sweet the orange is, nor do you need to read a thick book describing its flavor. You only need to take a bite yourself. The sweetness or sourness will immediately manifest on the tip of your tongue, beyond any deception. That direct experience is the strongest fortress, protecting a person against all conflicting public opinions. The search for inner peace is exactly the same. When you hear a sermon and feel your heart become lighter, more sympathetic toward the clumsiness of those around you, and better able to restrain irrational anger toward your loved ones, then that sermon has real value. Conversely, if after listening you only feel pride rising within, seeing yourself as noble and others as inferior, or if you feel fear regarding invisible punishments for not donating money, that is the time to stop and consider carefully. Peace cannot be bought with money or submission. It can only sprout from genuine understanding and love. This scrutiny leads to an extremely important principle. Rely on the Dhamma, the teachings and the truth, not on the messenger. Human beings, no matter how many years they have practiced or how high their status, are still entities of flesh and blood. They still face the challenges of life and can be swayed by the temptations of fame, fortune, and their surroundings. By placing total faith and worship in a specific individual, one has placed themselves in a high-stakes gamble. Because when that person makes a mistake, the one who relies on them will fall straight into the abyss of disappointment and disorientation. Imagine a person walking in the pitch black night, needing a torch to lead the way through rugged paths full of deep pits. The most important thing is that the light from the torch helps them see the path under their feet, not whether the hand of the person holding the torch is beautiful or ugly, clean or dirty. If the torchbearer happens to stumble and fall, the light of the fire remains the truth that helps the follower avoid danger. The Buddha's teachings are that light. The preachers are merely the torchbearers. When one pays too much attention to the torchbearer, busy praising their splendor or criticizing their clumsiness, they forget to look down at the road to walk themselves. The result is that they stumble when the torchbearer changes direction or collapses midway. Distinguishing clearly between the torch and the torchbearer is the first step for a person of wisdom. The chaos of this era, an era often called a time of moral decay and tested faith, is actually a natural movement of all things. The Buddha once gave a profound warning about decay from within. He said that no external force or extremely powerful weapon can destroy the true Dhamma. Only the worms born from within the lion's own body can eat the lion's flesh. This is a painful but incredibly accurate metaphor for the reality of life. The mighty lion, king of all beasts, fears no direct attack from any predator, yet it must succumb to tiny parasites living right within its own skin and flesh. Massive, grand temples, elaborate rituals attracting thousands, and crowded groups flocking to pray for blessings are not signs of spiritual prosperity. Behind that magnificent facade, there is sometimes a void of morality. When those who carry the name of practitioners still have minds full of material desire, using the faith of others to accumulate wealth and polish their reputation, they are the worms gnawing away at the prestige of the faith from the inside. This decline does not come from the criticism of outsiders, but from the erosion of the precepts by those within. This silent gnawing creates a very frightening psychological spiral for people living their daily lives. Witnessing such deviant behaviors, the human heart easily falls into a state of doubting everything. People start to shut the doors of their hearts, no longer wanting to believe in anything kind or holy. This loss of faith leads to an attitude of indifference and coldness, and finally, a drifting along with the vices of the world, thinking that if even the practitioners are like that, why should they bother trying to live well? That is the bitter fruit of confusing the essence of inner practice with outward appearances. The collapse of faith is like a crack on a pane of glass. It is very small at first, but over time it spreads and shatters the entire glass of the soul. To untie this knot in the heart, returning to the true nature of practice is absolutely essential. That is experiential practice within one's own daily life. Core value does not lie in the reinforced concrete of great structures, but in tending to the spiritual temple within each person. That temple does not need monetary contributions to be built, nor does it need complex rituals or long written prayers. It is built with silence, with selfless kindness, and with mindfulness in the smallest daily actions. Each brick used to build this temple is a gentle word, a tolerant thought, and a silent gesture of help that requires no recognition. Facing the pressures of life, from busy work to petty conflicts in the family, the mind easily becomes fatigued and irritable. Small anxieties accumulating day by day are like fine grains of sand falling into your shoes. One grain is fine, but a whole shoe full of sand makes every step a painful torture. Inner insecurity is the result of accumulating negative thoughts, judgments of others, and desires that exceed one's actual capacity without daily clearing. People often busy themselves cleaning their houses and wiping expensive furniture, but forget to sweep away the dust piling up in their minds. In those moments of utter exhaustion, seeking out noisy temples or expensive blessing ceremonies usually does not bring true peace. It is only like a temporary painkiller, soothing the discomfort for a moment, but unable to cure the root of the disease. The disease of insecurity can only be treated by turning back to look at oneself, facing the internal fractures instead of running away into external rituals. True stillness does not lie in a place without noise, but in a mind without conflict and demands. Before passing away under the shade of the two sala trees in the quiet forest, as Ananda stood sobbing in fear for the future of the community, without the presence of the great teacher to lead them, the Buddha left behind his final instructions, which were incredibly warm and profound. That night, the forest wind rustled through the canopy, and sala flowers bloomed out of season, falling like the tears of heaven and earth. Ananda, the loyal disciple who spent half his life serving the Buddha, felt as if the sky were collapsing upon realizing that the great tree was about to fade away. In that moment of sorrow, the Buddha did not appoint a powerful successor to lead. He also did not leave behind material legacies or rigid laws to force everyone to follow blindly. He kindly taught that after he was gone, the disciples must be lamps unto themselves, rely on themselves, take the Dhamma and the precepts as their teacher, and absolutely not rely on anyone or anything else besides the Dhamma. This final teaching liberates humans from all dependency on external powers. It affirms the truth that every person has a lamp within their own mind, capable of illuminating their own path, without having to beg for or buy light from others. Relying on oneself is not arrogance or looking down on others. It is taking responsibility for one's own life. When one understands that suffering or happiness is created by one's own thoughts, words, and actions, they will no longer blame circumstances and no longer wait for blessings or salvation from some master. This is a total liberation, returning to human beings the right to decide their own fate. In daily life, being a lamp unto oneself can start from very small and simple things. It is when facing a false rumor on social media, instead of rushing to click share or leaving hateful, angry comments, a person chooses to stop for a few seconds and ask if this information is true and if it brings any benefit to anyone. It is when facing a burst of anger toward a loved one, a person recognizes the heat rising in their heart and chooses to stay silent, taking a few deep breaths until the mind calms down. Those short pauses are precious spaces for wisdom to speak in time, preventing unnecessary brokenness. Peace is not a state of absolute silence, where there is no noise or hardship. True peace is the ability to maintain balance right in the midst of life's disturbances. Like a lotus flower growing from the mud, it cannot choose its birthplace, whether a clear lake or a foul swamp. But it can choose not to be polluted by the smell of the mud around it, opening its petals and radiating a gentle fragrance. The mud does not make the lotus dirty. On the contrary, the mud is the source of nutrients that nourishes the lotus to grow every day. Adversities and difficulties in life are the same. If faced with mindfulness, they become valuable materials that help a person grow and become more stable. When one no longer places excessive expectations on external forms or preachers, the heart naturally becomes much more spacious and tolerant. Seeing a practitioner commit a mistake, one no longer feels a collapse of faith or a flare of rage, but looks at them with the sympathetic eyes of someone who clearly understands human weakness in the face of life's temptations. One understands that whatever seeds are sown, the fruit will be reaped. One's job is not to judge or punish them, but to maintain the purity of one's own soul. This tolerance is not complicity with wrongdoing, but a deep understanding of the fragility of human existence, leading one to turn back and warn themselves to stay away from those same pitfalls. The Buddha's lessons from thousands of years ago still retain their practical value, never blurred by the dust of time. They are not lofty philosophies for debate in classrooms, but specific instructions to be applied to every meal, every sleep, and every daily conversation. When one stops chasing external clamor, stops seeking illusory fame or promises of a distant heaven, they will find relief right in the stillness of the present. Life is inherently very short. Spending too much time judging the world only makes the soul more tired and withered. Just put the phone aside to rest for a few minutes. Focus on drinking a glass of warm water and feel the cool stream flowing through your throat. Just watch a yellow leaf fall by the porch without calculating tomorrow's tasks. Those simple actions are the manifestation of returning to tend to the spiritual temple within oneself. They are the way to be a lamp unto oneself amidst the fluctuations of life. When the lamp in the heart is lit with mindfulness and kindness, the darkness of daily anxiety will naturally recede, giving way to the true peace that is always available within every human being, gentle and enduring, like an underground stream that flows forever.